They look like dragons, but they're not dragons. And I redid them again. Alright, y'all, so I get a lot of reception when it comes to Zing. I guess there's a lot of Zing lovers out there. Will always remain one of my favorite decks next to Fire Fist, but I finally had some more time to play with more of my friends, especially shout out Machuca because he's one of the better duelists I know, and we finally tweaked it enough. I read a lot of techie stuff in the last build, and it was more like just like creative fun build, but now I finally actually made something that's pretty decent in terms of just getting the plays off that you need to get. Still no immaculate first turn boards, but it's made True King Zing a lot funner since certain cards have come out. So let's get right into that. So starters, some of the monsters have tweaked a little bit, but a lot of the Zings have stayed the same. You're always going to probably want 3 Jiaotu in my opinion. The thing about this deck is it is broken to open diagram, but you can actually still go off a lot with all monsters as long as it involves like either getting the Jiaotu off, or even if you don't have Jiaotu in the hand, if you have a bunch of Zings and a True King, you can still get one out with the diagram. That's the one case that you want the diagram, but even with all monsters you can still go out, and Jiaotu is just going to get you 2 monsters out the deck and make it really easy for you to start some of your plays. With the Jiaotu, I'm going to keep 2 Chi-Wen. In this build, I just keep him at 2 because a lot of the times I'm not going to get his recurring effect too often unless I happen to open him as one of the monsters to dump with a Jiaotu. Most of the time you just have him because he's an extra tuner and a different level than Jiaotu. Honestly, I wish sometimes that Zings did have another tuner, like maybe a level 3 or something, but you know, Dang Long got hit, so this is all we got for now. Next up for your Zings is going to be 3 Bixie, which is 3 of your water. We're still running 3 of the same True Kings I ran before, so you know you're going to want Bixie as often as you can when you have your Bosteros. I mean, not getting Bosteros' double water effect isn't too important for you, but just having at least 1 water to get him live is nice. And then to follow the Bixie, of course, we're going to have our 3 Swanee. Swanee, honestly, besides the fact being the same purpose as Bixie is for Bosteros as he is for Agni Mazud, he's still a 1900 beater, and that sometimes is necessary to just have like a 1900 beater when you can, and also just to facilitate your True King plays. Still 2 Beyond until I get Lithosagam back even at 1, which I'm praying for. Beyond is still just going to stay at 2. He is kind of important now though, because which I'll tell you a little bit back out of the end, because he's going to be one of the main targets you're going to want to use with your Jiaotu now. Then for the 1 of Zings, I got 1 Taoti because sometimes name is an issue here and level for certain Synchros is an issue. The 1 Pulao, even though I no longer run the Wind True King, but simply just because if I do have multiple Zings and I need to use multiple resources to make a Savage Dragon, it's sometimes nice to make the Savage Dragon immune to spell effects. And then only 1 Zephyr Nui. I used to run 2 of this guy a lot when I still heavily relied on Baxia, but that is no longer the case. So I still just have the 1 because he is a level 6 and he does help make a level 8 really easy with your Jiaotu. But at the same time, if you have to summon him from the deck because you need extra like draw power or something, you could always pop him and either fire or water for one of your True Kings and then just get his effect, because since it's at the same time, I believe you can still do it. So there is it for your Zing monsters. I haven't tweaked the ratios since making this new build, and so far I think that's fine. Only thing in question so far for the Zings, if you're curious, would be the Taoti, but it wouldn't really be to just drop him for anything completely. It would just be to double up on either Pulao or triple up on Beyond. Moving on to the True Kings, it's just the 3 Agni Mazud. He's obviously one of the nicer effects to get off if you can pop 2 fire with him, because he's going to banish a card, a monster, and then also if he's destroyed, he adds a non-fire worm from your graveyard back to your hand. Following him is going to be Bosteros, who is arguably also the better effect besides Lithosagam, since he's banned. Because Bosteros, if he's popped, he's going to summon any non-water worm for your deck. So if you open him in a diagram, you could pop him, search a different True King, and get a Jiaotu. And then you search whatever True King you want, because you can get at least one of the necessary attributes out from Jiaotu's effect. And then, he's just also nice to have. And that is it for your True Kings. So moving on to the rest of your monsters, a little combo that I just didn't know about because I live under Rogue Rock and a real fun deck Rock that I like to stay comfortably in. But Machuga did lace me up on game recently and showed me a little bit more with some new cards that have come out. So I am running one of the Super Anti-Kaiju and one Nightmare Incarnation Idli. So these are really just for a spell that you have in your deck. I will be honest, opening these kind of sucks. And it's not too terrible, but it just kind of negs you in a way. Like, it just makes you use a little more to get a little less. And then the last actual monster that you're going to use is going to be Chosen by the World Chalice. And I'll explain what these are all for in a little bit. And then the last two monsters of the deck are going to be two Ash Blossom. So trying to make my Zing a little bit more, like, not necessarily meta, obviously, but more aggressive and just playable against better decks. I just realized I had to cut a lot of my techie stuff and just run a lot more straightforward, like, meta cards. And that's why I chose two Ash. You could really substitute that for any hand traps you prefer, but I like Ash right now. Moving on to our beautiful, beautiful spells. I have 3 Zing Path for multiple reasons. It's nice to see it sometimes, especially if you're going to open like no diagram, no Jiaotu, and you're just going to have to like pop and summon a True King and then pop the Zings, because you can't use Jiaotu if there's other monsters on the field. And it's also nice to use as a card to dump with Jiaotu. So still 3 Zing Path for me right now. For this build, I really like it, but similar to the Chaoti, this might go down to 2 again, and I feel like a broken record with that, because in all my decks with Zing, it's constantly jumping from 2 to 3, 2 to 3. But it is what it is. Moving on, we got 3 Diagram, of course, the bread and butter. When you do open this, it's nice. Like I said, you don't have to bank on this, which is good. But if you do open Diagram, of course, it's amazing. Going with a lot of like taking out unnecessary stuff, I'm just running the 2 Terraforming now with the Diagram. I no longer run the Oracle Zephyra with a set rotation. I did run a more than 40 card deck before, and I believe this is 40 or 42. I'll give you that count number correctly at the end. But yeah, so just that to get to the diagrams. And then 2 Called by the Grave to go along with the same reason as the Ash, because Ash also destroys you in this deck. At least Jiaotu, like super hardcore. So you want 2 Called bys, at least in my opinion. If you're ballsy enough and you want to cut a Zing Path to make a 3rd Called by, sure, handle it. But me, I like it at 2. For the 1-of spells, the 1 Monster Reborn, because it's still Monster Reborn. As funny as it sounds to say, I was thinking of cutting this for something else I'll explain, but also Instant Fusion, because that's going to get you your little Fusion Worm guy who could become any attribute. 1 World Legacy Succession, and this is part of the reason why I was going to get rid of Monster Reborn, because this is actually searchable now in this deck, but I'm going to keep Monster Reborn for now, because sometimes not having a Link monster and getting this does kind of suck. Then the MVP spell card of the deck, which we're only running 1 of because it's searchable, is going to be your World Legacy Monstrosity. Honestly, it sucks to open this in hand too, because you want to be able to get this out the deck. This is going to be the MVP of the deck, because if you control level 9 and you activate this, you summon 2 level 9s with different type and attribute than the one you targeted on your field. And thankfully, your Agni Mazud and your Bosseros are both Worm, and they're Water and Fire. And your Incarnation Ibli is Dark Fairy, and the Kaiju is Machine Light. So you could run other, level 9s that you want, but I just like these 2, mainly because the Kaiju, he will summon himself from the graveyard in the end phase, and then if you can manage to open up a decent board, you also can't be Kaiju, which is nice. I mean, obviously not everybody mains Kaijus, but it's still an extra plus to the deck. And then the last card, which is the only trap, and it hurts me so, but you don't search as much anymore without dang long. So I just run the 1/9 Pillars in case I ever do get the search off. Like, believe it or not, in stall games where me and my opponent have both exhausted resources, I've sat on the level 6 Pendulum guy, and he's gotten destroyed, searched me this out, and I was able to get a Zing out, and then start some stuff with at least this down to save me from something. But so far, still the 1 trap. I mean, honestly, you could run anything else if you don't feel it's necessary, but I like it so far at that. The extra deck is something else. I've also tweaked a little bit with a lot of testing. I've gone against some good decks and with this new build, and they didn't destroy my Zings as much as they did the old one. Like, I faced some You know, there can only be one true Draco. I faced some sub-terrors. Like, it's pretty nice. Some of my friends have some pretty spicy decks, so I've gotten to at least stand my ground with some pretty good decks, and the extra deck is part of the reason why I can do that. So you're gonna, of course, have 2 of your True King on Calamities. Very easy to make in this deck. Just a good monster to have for yourself. He's also a 3k beater. He's gonna stay at 2 for a while. I am now running Phantom Fortress, enter Blathnir. The main reason I run this is because sometimes I can't super overextend and make like a Borreload Dragon, because a lot of the times the opening plays in this deck do depend on what extenders you drew with your True Kings and Yang Zings. But occasionally I have been able to sit on just like a generic Link 2 and then Calamities in this. And if you have to go first, making this and a Calamities is kind of nice because you set yourself at least up to shut down monsters, and then this guy can rip a card out of your opponent's hand going first. So it's pretty nice. I mean, I like him for now because I wanted some more versatility with my Exceeds. Going to the Synchros, it's still 2 Baxia, not to make a rank 8 Exceed anymore because Yang Zings are a lot slower now, but just mainly because Baxia still is really easy to make, and he still really does have a decent effect, even if you're just shuffling 2 cards when you Synchro for him. Continuing with the Yang Zings, of course, you got your boy Yazi and your boy Chaofeng. Chaofeng isn't made as often anymore, but if I am facing an attribute-heavy deck, or I manage to get multiple attributes, Chaofeng can actually still do a lot of damage, depending on what Yang Zings I can make him with. And then Yazi, also similar to Bastaros, Yazi just summons any worm after he's destroyed out the deck. So Yazi can be nice. He doesn't have the attribute restriction either. Plus he's a level 7 and he's really easy to make. For our generic Synchros, I have the 1 Savage Dragon, because if you do get enough extenders to go off and get like the land Fornicus to the grave, the thing that sucks about this is until we can link a little more, they give us like Yang Zing links or something, which if that ever happens, you're never really going to get Borreload Savage with more than 2 negates, but 2 negates is better than none, and he's a generic level 8. I still run 1 Trishula because being able to synchro on your turn with your opponent, with your Yang Zings on your opponent's turn, is really nice still. And I used to run Black Rose, but I took it out for now, and I still love Trishula a lot. So you can run any generic synchros that you feel are relevant to your meta or your locals, but I really like Trishula still. And then the other card that is the new MVP of the deck, and she's not even a Yang Zing, is going to be your Ib, the World Chalice Justica. But the reason why she's so good is you can make her with just Jiaotu and Beyond. You know, you can obviously summon whatever Yang Zings you want out the deck that aren't Beyond, pop them to summon a True King to get it on the field, and then, you know, you can make your Ibli, search your Monstrosity, and start to go off from there. And that's pretty much it for your Synchros. So she's definitely going to be your go-to card, the card that you save your Called By for, because she's really going to be the one that helps you get your stuff off. The 1 fusion is going to be our Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Main reason he's in here is because, I mean, he is a level 4, but I don't run any level 4 Exceeds. The only reason he's in here is because he can change his attribute, and he's already water, so just summoning him normally, he's a good target for Bastaros, and then you could change him to fire, and then now your Agni Mazut is live. Is one of the main ways you'll actually get your True Kings off with their double attribute effect. For those of you who don't know, that the Bastaros can only banish a monster, and the spell and traps if he uses 2 water, and the Agni Mazut can only banish a monster if he uses 2 fire. But they only need 1 of the attribute in order to summon themselves. For the Link monsters, it's going to be 2 Lamphornicus, because still there's not that very many good generic Links I could run, and I just need Link monsters sometimes because I could just sit with the True King Calamities up top, but then I have no room to like make a Synchro on my opponent's turn or back it up with a Synchro if I do have a good enough hand. So 2 Lamphornicus for now. I am going to try to experiment with some cards that are coming out in the future that happen to be Worm, even though they're out of their own archetype, but we'll see how that goes. And then the last 2 links, because you're not really going to be linking hella crazy, these are just because you can make them sometimes, is Saryuja and Borreload Dragon. I just like Borreload mainly because he can't be targeted by monster effects, so he's nice to get up here, and then when you can just flood the field. And sometimes you get a bunch of Yang Zings and True Kings in the hand, but not the right mix. And as long as you just summon 1 of those True Kings and start getting a bunch of monsters on the board, you can just Saryuja to try to fix a hand with like a couple cards in it left. And that's pretty much the only reason for running these 2. Alright, so as mentioned earlier, if you can manage to have a Jiaotu, some Yang Zings, and any True King in your hand, even then you can basically kind of start like a little nice combo. So let's just say for sake, you have Agni Mazud. Obviously having Bosteros and a Diagram sets you up for an even way better start, but I won't go the all-out combo. If you want that, if you want me to make a combo with the best hand possible, let us know in the comment section below. But even with just the Jiaotu, and as I mentioned, like let's say you pitch 2 Yang Zings, obviously you always want to summon the Yang Zing that can make your True King live. So in this case, you would get Swanee for your 0 defense, and you have to get one with 0 attack. So just whichever one is not, you know, Big C, in case you happen to have a Bastros in hand too, you know. So then you'd pop these 2 by summoning, you know, summoning your True King Agni Mazud, and then you'll get 2 Yang Zings off your Yang Zing. Your Chi Wen will no longer be live because you can only use 1 of his effects per turn. But pretty much after that, the Yang Zings you're going to get is definitely going to be Beyond, because he is important for your Synchro. And then at that point, you can get whatever other Yang Zing you think is going to help either for a Synchro, or really at this point it doesn't really matter as long as you keep the names in mind, because you're most likely going to use that monster to link. So like, for me, let's say I just brought out Pulao just because, you know, one of them brings attack, one of them brings defense. So from here, you're going to want to Synchro with these 2 for a 5. That's going to make your Ibli up here, and then she searches a World Legacy card when she's summoned, which is going to be your Monstrosity. Monstrosity, you target your Agni Mazud, you get these 2 bad boys on the field. So just with this, you have Saryuja if you wanted to risk like doing anything more, because like at this point, you know, it all depends what else you opened with, obviously, right? But even with just this, you know, you already have 5 monsters on board, and when Ibli leaves the field, she's going to summon Chosen by the World Chalice out the deck. And the only reason I chose him as the 1 World Legacy card I run is because he's a level 3 to help make her as well, and he's also fire to help with the Agni Mazud. So with just that alone, but even if you just link these 2, right, you can just make a Lampfornicus, summon an extra monster out the deck, and sit on a Calamities and a Borreload Dragon. And that's just a basic hand banking on no extenders. If you had extra ways to get another True King out, you could just make a Borreload with these, and then, you know, just make whatever rank 9 you want, or go off a little bit further. But ultimately, you're gonna obviously just want to sit on at least your True King Calamities. And then, like I said, if you can use this guy as one of the link materials and still get more level 9s out as well, in the end phase, he will summon himself back, and he will be a Kaiju on board, so with everything you have. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that we can keep working on this deck and actually get a full broken hand combo going for you guys. I'll continue to keep dueling with it, and if we get that, we'll link it in the comment section.